right? Guacamole is largely tomatoes and avocados. Fine combination. People all over the world eat that, no problem. That's acid and fat primarily. You can eat it with pineapple, with citrus. These are all relatively good combinations. There was a question about greens, and we look at greens, soft, tender, leafy greens. They combine well with all fruit except for melons. Remember, nothing combines well with melons. But you can eat acid fruit with lettuce. You can eat subacid fruit with lettuce. You can eat sweet fruit with lettuce. If you want to make a green salad and include some sweet fruit in it, when I say sweet fruit in this context, I mean anything we think of as fruit, not as fruit vegetables. That's fine. You want to pay attention to what else is in there. So if you've got your regular salad, let's say, of lettuce, tomato, red pepper, and a little bit of avocado, you would not want to add a banana to that mix, because the banana combines well with the lettuce, but not well with the avocado and not well with the tomato. Okay? Those are poor combinations. But you could have a green salad, lettuce, tomato, avocado, a little bit of red pepper. You could add in a little bit of papaya, or a little bit of mango, or a little bit of orange. Not all of them, any one of them. Okay? A little bit of pineapple. Any one of these things is perfectly fine, because each of those things combines perfectly well with the tomato, perfectly well with the lettuce, perfectly well with the avocado. Okay? So we want to make sure that the entire thing, the entire mixture, everything's combining relatively well. And remember something I said many times before. I always talk about simple salads. Why? Well, because the greater the number of different items, different kinds of food in the salad, the harder it's going to be for your body to digest that all well together, and the less likely it is that it's going to be well combined. Right? The more things we add, the more challenging we make the job for the body. So typically for me, a salad consists of no more than 4 or 5 ingredients. By the way, I did do a video recently called Simple Salads, which you'll find on my YouTube channel, which talks more about this. Okay. What else? There were some other non-sweet fruits like zucchini. Again, these are things that combine relatively well with acid, relatively well with fat, not well with sweet. So you probably don't want to be mixing bananas in with your zucchini pasta, but you could easily put some tomatoes in there and some avocado. Okay, that would be no problem. All right, doesn't sound very good anyway, does it? Yeah. All right. So nuts and seeds, again, these are high fat content foods, and people think of them as high protein content foods, and while they have more protein than most fruit, they have far lower protein as a percentage of calories than leafy greens, which are about 50% protein. Dark green leaves are about the highest content of protein that we eat. But nuts and seeds are almost all across the board are going to be around 50% of their calories from fat. So, other than an avocado, they're about the highest fat content things that people can eat, and different than an avocado, we're not going to have the same impact of ripening fruit. We don't have nuts ripening and breaking those fats down in the same way that happens in the fruit. And so nuts and seeds are always going to be much harder for the body to digest, much more of a burden on the body, on the system, than a ripe avocado. And that's why if you go into the kitchen, which you're not allowed to do right now, but if you were, you would find no nuts and seeds. I don't buy them. I don't stock them. The exception, we're doing a retreat in a month or so. If you're interested, let me know. And we will probably be using some soaked nuts and seeds at the retreat for some dishes that are definitely compromises, because there's going to be a raw chef on site who's going to do some of those things. But my typical daily, day-to-day meal, my diet, does not include nuts and seeds. I probably eat nuts and seeds no more than half a dozen times a year, and I feel much better for not eating them. Okay? But again, that's partly about where I am and how efficient my body is. You may need some. You just want to understand you're consuming something that is probably the hardest thing of anything for the body to digest and process. And so you don't want to do more than you need to. Okay? All right, so I think if we're going to restrict this only to those things that actually belong in the body, we've covered almost everything. The only other things that come up sometimes, people ask about sea vegetables. I would treat sea vegetables like leafy greens in terms of what they combine with. We've got mushrooms, which are not vegetables. They're actually fungi. And fungi, again, they combine okay with leafy greens. Probably not so well with fats, in my experience. Okay with acid fruits, especially the non-sweet ones like tomatoes. So mushrooms are another thing that do not appear in my kitchen very often. I may have them sometimes on a salad or sometimes in a special dish of some kind, but not something I'm buying on a consistent basis, not something I'm eating more than probably half a dozen times a year. Okay? And by the way, I mean, if you want to create a high level of health, then what you want to do is consistently make excellent choices. Now, if you occasionally make a little compromise, that's fine. The problem is that many people make some compromises every single day. I make compromises once every 2 months or so, maybe, something on average, something like that. I mean, it usually happens, no compromises at all for 2 months or more, and then I go to the U.S. and eat at some raw food restaurants where I'm speaking, and there's compromises. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 nights in a row. And then I fly back to Costa Rica and live on only watermelon and papaya and pineapple for another 2 months, and then fly back and make some compromises. The less compromising you do, the better off you're gonna do, and the higher the level of health and vitality you're going to be able to create. So let me take any questions that still remain. Yeah, go ahead.
About nuts and seeds, I know you said that's a compliment. You don't want to eat too much, but
right.
I didn't understand, what do they combine well with? Any fruits?
Well, they combine well with leafy greens. They combine well with acid fruits. They combine less well with subacid fruits, and not well with sweet fruits. The sweeter the fruit is, the less good the combination is with nuts and seeds. Okay? And they combine okay with the non-sweet fruits. But acid is the best combination with that. And with themselves, well, really no, because there's nothing harder to digest than these concentrated sources of fat. You'd be better off eating one of them and not two together. So almonds and sunflower seeds, any one of them is hard work. Now you've got 2 different hard work jobs to do at the same time. Probably better off not doing that. Even when they're soaked. Yeah, if they're not soaked, you don't even go there. Okay? If you're going to eat them, definitely soaked first to reactivate those enzymes. If they're not soaked, they are virtually impossible for most. I mean, it's just a ton of work, and you're likely to create a lot of issues.
How long do you soak them?
You would want to soak your seeds for 6 to 8 hours, depending on the seed, and nuts, 8 to 12 hours is long enough. You want to soak them in pure water. You want to drain off the water, the soak water, and then rinse them and eliminate that. And you can take nuts, and you can once they've been soaked, you can store them in the fridge for up to maybe 5 to 7 days before they start to go bad. Seeds tend to not last quite as long.
Do you keep them in the water, or do you just drain them?
You want to keep them wet. They can be in the water or not in the water, but.
You keep changing the water.
And when you're storing them in your kitchen, if you're going to keep them, you want to keep them in the freezer, because those, if they're shelled, especially if they're out of the shell, they're going to go rancid at room temperature very quickly. And if you buy a bag of almonds out of their shells from a store where they're sitting on the shelf, they're already rancid. Okay? I mean, really the ideal thing to do would be to buy them in their shells and shell each one when you want to eat it. That's how they're going to be freshest. And it's also going to ensure that your consumption goes way down, because it's a lot of work. Well, you could shell them, soak them, and eat them.
This might be maybe a little off topic, but what about frozen fruit?
Frozen fruit. Freezing anything is a method of processing it. We're changing it. When I'm talking about diet, I'm talking about whole foods. I'm talking about foods that are fresh, ripe, juicy, whole, organic. Frozen is not that. What happens when we freeze something? Have you ever tried freezing a fruit like a strawberry or maybe a bag of strawberries? You take them out and you think, oh, I'll let these thaw and they'll be really delicious. And they might taste good, but what happens to the consistency?
Mushy.
It's all mushy. You know why that is? Because the strawberry is mostly water. And when you freeze it, you create ice inside the cells. And the ice bursts, it ruptures all the cell structures, the cell membranes. So when you thaw it out, you don't have the same structure. You have something different, and it completely changes the consistency. And people say freezing doesn't hurt the nutrients at all. That may be true. However, as soon as you thaw it out, you've lost much of the value. Okay, because you've ruptured all the membranes, and now everything's exposed to the oxygen, and very quickly you lose much of the value of the food. So I would use frozen fruits. Again, for me, it's a very occasional thing. I mean, I've been looking at large freezers. Why? Well, we produce 100 mangoes a day in mango season from one large tree. Soon there'll be more than that. Can't eat them all. So it might make sense to take the excess if we can't give it away or nobody wants it and freeze it. And when we're doing these special events, you've got frozen mango that you can do something with. But understand that eating it I'll tell you a quick story. I once taught a client about banana ice cream, taking frozen bananas, running them through a champion juicer, getting this thing that comes out like frozen custard. It's delicious. And the next time I talked to her was probably a month later. I said, how you doing? She said, I'm doing great. And I just want to thank you because I'm having banana ice cream for dinner every night. And I said, I apologize. I apparently failed to make it clear to you that this is like a nice special treat sometimes, but no substitute for fresh food. It's no longer the same thing if you're taking it out of the fridge and then running it through a machine, taking it out of the freezer and running it through a machine. So do it every once in a while, maybe. When I lived in the U.S. and when I had a champion juicer, we would freeze bananas, and I haven't had a freezer. I have one here. This is the first freezer I've had now for many years. We didn't have one in Panama. If I had people over, I might make them a smoothie, might make a special treat or something. But it's not a common thing. It's not daily consumption. Every once in a while. It's definitely lower in nutrient content than the fresh banana. And for me, the fresh banana is in many ways inferior to other fruits anyway. I mean, it's wonderful. It's got lots of great stuff. What it's missing is the water content. And I know that because most people are severely dehydrated, eating something lower in water content only makes it harder to reach full hydration. So I encourage people to focus on high water content foods, which are everything but the sweet fruits. And then, some sweet fruits, but I mean, for me, I buy bananas once or twice a week. I throw most of them away. Most of them go back into the compost pile because they don't get eaten. And I'm perfectly fine with that. And I don't need them. I don't need those calories. I don't need all that bulk. It's perfectly fine. I live on watermelon, papaya, pineapple, a few other things. Okay? And I think you're going to do the best if you do the same thing. Now, once you get to full hydration, if you want to eat more of those sweet things that are lower in water content, that's fine. But any other food combining questions? Yeah?
What about sprouts, whether they be seed sprouts or bean sprouts?
Yeah, that's a good question. Where do sprouts fall in? And how does it vary depending on what kinds of sprouts they are? Let me first of all point out that like most plants on the planet, sprouts, which are little green plants, I mean, you've taken a seed of something, whether it's a bean or a seed, they're all seeds, really, and you've grown it, you sprout it into a little plant. It's got roots, it's got a little shoot, and what it wants to do is grow up and make babies. It wants to propagate. It does not want to get eaten, and so many sprouts actually make themselves toxic. You can throw fruits through a few sprouts on a salad, you're probably never going to notice this. But if you go and eat a whole huge meal of sprouts, you're probably going to feel sick because of that toxicity. I mean, remember, you eat an apple. An apple contains on average what? 8, maybe 10 or 12 seeds, you could probably chew up all the seeds and maybe never notice it. But you eat a half cup of seeds and you die. Okay? It's not that the 8 or 10 seeds aren't toxic to you. They are. It's just that you're not going to notice that level of toxicity. Well, the same is true with sprouts. But understand, they're probably not optimal from that perspective. People use them because they're very high in protein content. But see, where I'm coming from is a little bit different than most people because I'm really clear it's not about consuming more nutrients. It's about getting the body clean and efficient so we can use what's already coming in. We can get all the nutrients we need eating whole, fresh, ripe, juicy fruits and simple green salads. Even if you never eat sprouts, it's no problem. If you want to, that's fine. I would definitely not encourage anyone to focus on sprouts as like the major food group. I'm going to have a little bit of this with my sprouts. You don't want to go there. A few sprouts on top of something else, no problem. Okay?
What about bean sprouts versus like, I know they're all seeds, but
If you've allowed the bean to sprout until it's a little green plant, it should be no more difficult. But if you take like a mung sprout, can grow until it's like a little green plant. There's no bean left. It actually sheds the bean. Some people take beans and soak them to get them germinated and then eat them. I've tried that with lentils and mung and other things. You're asking for some upset. You still have something which is much more difficult to digest than anything we were ever really designed to digest. It's equal parts protein and starch. That's a poor combination by itself, and it's one of the reasons it causes gas. It's going to be difficult. So, if it's been allowed to grow to the point that it's a living little plant, that's okay. It's not too difficult. No problem. Okay. Any other questions?
Are beans, they're legumes, and so are peanuts.
That's right.
So they are not, they should be eaten, they can be eaten, right?
Peanuts?
Sporadically, both.
Well, I don't know that you can eat peanuts raw. As I understand it, they're toxic raw.
And it tastes horrible.
They're pretty much always cooked.
Yeah, you don't.
I'm not encouraging anyone. I'm not encouraging anyone to eat anything cooked. Okay, let's be really clear that anything cooked is poisonous to the body.
But
Cooking creates toxins.
Peanuts, we don't eat them raw?
No, they're toxic raw.
No, I know, but when we eat them, what form are they in?
They're typically roasted.
Roasted,
In their own fat.
okay. And the other question I had was about, so combining melons among themselves, okay.
No, I mean, you do whatever you like, but my advice to you would be to eat one kind of melon at a time. All right, well, I hope that's been helpful to you. I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.